Woohoo.
Barbara, if you can hear us, in about 2 minutes we will start the discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So
Hey
I was just
again.
doing a small video for my Instagram, calling for now.
We have to be extra vigilant. You used to have 2 bikes patrolling this water, and there's nothing.
Này mà bùi bờ ca e.
I'm a reporter for Door Magazine, and today I'll be your host for the next hour in a talk with a filmmaker and photographer and activist. This is the 9th edition, and it was supposed to take place live in Tulcea. And I was supposed to be there too, live for the first time. But we all know by now that this year had other plans for us. First of all, I just want to invite you that after this talk, you go and surf through the first online editions program, because I saw some very good treats coming up soon on the official website, pelicam.ro. There will be talks and documentaries about our rivers, about mass tourism, the life of gardens, wolves, women carrying water, about forests, of course, and some secret messages from the end of the world. So stay in tune. I know the team worked very hard for this year's selection to become possible. So you watching and giving them feedback afterwards, I'm sure is the greatest reward. Moving the festival online, I don't think we'll take the charm out of very good environment topics, especially in these times. I think the festival should fit perfectly into our schedule because we all saw nature a bit more with other eyes, I think, staying at home for 2 months at least. We missed it. We observed the trees around us, the blue of the sky. We listened to the birds singing more. And I think we felt the need to get closer to it. So let's give it a go and talk about it and find some ways we can each support it more each day. Today we start the conversation with Barbara, but tune back in at 9 for a German documentary about 600 people on an island trying to keep it safe from becoming a wealthy resort. Before we start, just know that we will talk about like 40 minutes and then we will invite you to ask questions, but also all around, if you have questions earlier, just ask them on the chat in a comment, and I will get to them as I speak to Barbara. Okay. Barbara produces content focused on social and on environmental themes with a solid list of international collaborations. She was awarded by National Geographic for a photo series called For People and Nature. And her pieces were run, among others, by BBC, The Guardian, Los Angeles Times, or Vanity Fair. Sea Woman is one of her recent artistic performances talking about the inner search for peace and connection to nature. She also is the author of the book 7 Years on 7 Seas, which was published last year. At 22, Barbara embarked on an international experience, marine international experience, diving in her passion for the environment and biodiversity. Part of it on a Greenpeace ship to work on a campaign to combat deforestation in the Amazon rainforest in 2006. Part of it with other organizations like Sea Shepherd or on her own boat. Her life journey also passed from the Amazon to Antarctica, which took her crossing from Malaysia to Turkey, passing through more than 80 countries, something that only felt like the beginning for her. She was boarded by pirates in Africa, survived storms, sabotaged illegal fishing vessels, and helped eradicate tuna farms. So I can't wait to hear more about that. She was a spy infiltrating the community of whalers hunting the mammals in the Faroe Islands and was arrested inside and outside of Brazil, the place she's from, for talking about the importance of saving the oceans. And last but not least, she is one of the founders of the movement Women's League in the Oceans, who started last year. And she will talk more about that also. And a great detail that I love about her is that she signs her emails with fair winds. So Barbara, welcome. It's a joy to have you with us and talk to you, even if it's from distance. So tell us, where are you right now and what are you doing? How are you?
Hello, Anka. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this lovely time here, sharing hope and ideas, passions. I love film festivals. I'm passionate about the environment. I've been around on this topic for over 20 years. So it's a real pleasure to start this conversation with you. Well, the journey here in London, this is where I am now on lockdown. I wasn't expected to be here for such a long time. It's been 4 months already, but I'm used to live in Amsterdam before the quarantine was established here in the UK. But my life, it's kind of fluid. It really depends on the project I'm involved. So I used to say that my body, it's my home, at least for now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was one of the biggest questions I had for later, but I can ask it now. How do you report yourself to the notion of home, being so much on the road? Do you have any place that you can call at home, or the world is your home, or how do you see this concept?
Yes, good question. I think I'm still looking for this home, but not in an anxious way. But I know when the right time comes, I will feel comfortable. But right now, when I am in contact with the sea, this is where I feel connected, and this is how I feel at home. So even here in the UK, when I look into the rivers, this is how I connect to the waters. Here I live pretty close to the Thames River. So this is what's been helping me to connect with nature. But yes, let's say when I see the ocean, when I connect with nature, this is home for me.
Okay. And now if we're diving into the oceans topic, how did you start connecting to the oceans? I know you started at a very early age. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your beginning.
Yes, Anka, you're right. Well, I started when I was 14 years old. I was super young. I decided to do beach cleanup with friends, and the beginning was just a group of 5 people. And then when I realized I was surrounded by 200 people collecting garbage from the beaches I used to go for the weekends, right? And then there's something there I felt was really wrong about the planet, and I shouldn't be just doing one thing for the planet, right? So of course, beach cleanups are very, 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 very important, but I felt I needed to do something bigger. And then I decided to look for organizations, international organizations, because the ocean it's everywhere, it's for everyone. It doesn't matter the language you speak, where you're from, the ocean is there, right? So then at the time I decided to contact Greenpeace. It wasn't really easy at the beginning because the internet was not so accessible for me. And then it was quite magical because I saw the power of the collective. I saw the energy of a group of people together. It doesn't matter where it comes from, doing something meaningful, strong, and necessary for our survival. So when I felt that, I look at it, I look at my life. It's like, okay, this is what I have to be. This is where I have to be, and how I have dedicated my time. It was very natural to be full-time dedicated to Greenpeace actions at the time. And then just a little later, I was invited to join my very first campaign to protect the Amazon forest. That was in 2006, so it's been a while. It's really amazing how many countries and campaigns and actions I've been involved in, especially the people I got to the opportunity to meet and connect during this journey, not only working for Greenpeace, but also Sea Shepherd, Amazon Watch, ILO, organizations, very important international organizations fighting not only for the planet, but not only for the oceans, but also for the planet, in the human side and the forest side, and all sides combining together, considering the fact that we are connected.
Okay. And maybe for our younger audience, but not necessarily, you can do maybe a change also later in life. Because you said the connection to Greenpeace wasn't easy at first. How do you actually start? You send an email maybe, and what do you say? I want to join because how do you do this? How do you get in, basically? Because we were talking earlier when we met that this is not a world where you drop a CV and say, oh, I want to be an explorer, I want to save the world, or I want to save the oceans. How do you actually get in and
Yeah, as I said, the internet was not as accessible at the time, not so easy. So I was basically looking for lectures, workshops, anything related to the environment. That was my call. So I believe when you want to be part of something, when you need, like deep inside, when it's like I need to, it's not a matter of choice, it's a necessity. This is how I felt. So I went to this lecture, and I knew there would be people from my hometown or people from other parts of Brazil representing the topics I would like to discuss, and not only discuss but take action. I think when we are young, when we have a lot of energy, I still have a lot of energy, but
you're still young.
But yeah, and you feel that you have to put your energy in something, right? Like I remember, my very first favorite band, when I was my very first book, that the book that creates questions, and it's like, wow, my life has a meaning. I have to participate into something. What is my tribe? What I'm part of? So this is quite fascinating, because it's a kind of an energy that takes you to so many beautiful and interesting directions in your life, and we have the power to decide. So yeah, I believe I was really driven by this energy that I think everybody has it. And then when you feel that something it's for you, like we don't have time to waste. You just like go there, go forward, make it happen. So when I met this lawyer, this guy representing Greenpeace at this conference, this lecture/conference I was in to discuss the environment in Brazil, I felt, just I should talk with him. And then he gave me the number of the person who I should contact in Rio, which is where I'm from originally, Rio de Janeiro. And then the magic happens, right? I worked in the beginning as a volunteer, and then I migrated as an employee afterwards. So my journey at sea started that way. They asked me, "Oh, do you want to join the ship?" I was like, "My God, I don't know how to sail. I have no experience with that." But you see, when you're passionate about something, there is no limits, right? Like I think this passion took me to where I am, and I'm hoping that I'm going to go like to many different, not only destinations, but directions, helping people to increase their interest and their awareness regarding the oceans specifically, but also the rivers, also the forest, the indigenous causes, which I'm very dedicated and passionate about too.
Okay, and you said you started in the Amazon, basically. I'm curious, how do you start such a journey? I mean, what did you have to do? What was your purpose there? How does such a trip develop day by day on sea and then on shore, I suppose?
Yeah, I guess it's when you join the ship, when you join this life at sea, you have to be pretty much open to do everything. Okay. So this is quite fascinating, because there is no, even if I had my role on board as a communicator, as a photographer or filmmaker, I was also there to help to separate the garbage, to do the morning cleaning if necessary, help with the watch on board, help to navigate. So I love this because it really helps to bring skills and abilities that I didn't even know. I didn't have the opportunity to study in the school, or maybe my the cycle of friends or family was not really intimate with these things. So that was like a whole discovery of possibilities. Like the very first time I touched the wood, I learned how to help myself in stress situations too. And imagine yourself like navigating the ship with 40 people with more than 20 different nationalities. They're all sleeping, fighting for a cause, and then you're there on watch, protecting their lives to save other lives. during the work. So it's quite fascinating. And the fact that I sailed from the Amazon, which is, you know, part of me, part of my culture, and also part of everyone, because if we're breathing the air now, it's because of the forest, it's because of the ocean. The 70% of the oxygen we breathe now, it comes from the sea, right? So I think it's a real opportunity to open up and experience a totally new life that's it's possible. It's there if you are interested. It's not that everybody has to go jump in the ship and sail from the Amazon to Antarctica, as I did, but perhaps just look it up inside and see what kind of actions you might take. It could be writing, painting, dancing. There are so many possibilities nowadays, especially with the online immersion that we're having now during the lockdown. But what I mean, it's like we can all contribute it somehow.
Okay, because you talked about actions and earlier about effective campaigns. I'm curious, from all your experience, what are a few of the most, I don't know, effective campaigns on long term to save a part of the oceans or the forests, being there in the field? What does it work and what doesn't work on long term, on short term? I don't know. I suppose not every campaign was successful, but maybe some of them are solutions that we can also embrace and replicate in other parts of the world. Tell us a bit about some of them.
Yeah, life at sea. It maybe it seems romantic, right? You have the waves and the sun, and yeah, maybe people have this image of, you know, a romantic lifestyle, but it is tough sometimes. It's awesome to be able to see a pod of dolphins or whales coming and going. Then when you are doing snorkeling or swimming or diving, and you like face a group of manta rays crossing your way. I had amazing, really amazing experiences sailing all over the world. But of course, there are tough times. Besides the fact that there are storms and you know, sometimes in snow or even weather conditions that you can't really control, can predict a little bit with the technology on board, but we are always surprised with something that we don't know what's going to happen. And I remember one very effective and interesting campaign. I was working for Sea Shepherd in Antarctica. I've been there for 2 years on this campaign, back and forth in Australia. And it was to come back to go against the whaling there every year for many years. The Japanese whaling fleet go there for whaling. Nowadays, they're only hunting in their national waters in Japan. But I remember seeing with my own eyes through very intense strategies, feeling like in a war to save these whales. It was really fascinating to see, not only as a petition or something you see virtually, right? Like I was there with all these people around me, photographing and filming actions to actually save these whales one by one. And yeah, so we could see there visually, like when you're putting yourself physically, literally between the harpoon and the whale. So that was quite intense, quite powerful, because this excuse of scientific research, it's not acceptable, right? It's not acceptable. We don't need it anymore. Scientists from all over the world has already proved that it's not necessary. And the tough times, I think it's when you don't control what happens at sea. And I remember coming back from this amazing, beautiful, inspiring campaign in 2011 in Antarctica. And then we got a call from the New Zealand Maritime saying that there was a Mayday call from 3 Norwegians sailing, and they were there lost. There was a terrible storm happening. They had no experience in sailing in Antarctica, and they were there to do a show, a TV show. It was quite scary because, oh my God, you know, we were there to save whales, and then suddenly we have to save 3 sailors, Norwegian sailors. And then we crossed this very, very, very dangerous, the New Zealand Maritime said it took around 10 years to realize that it was the worst storm that happened ever. Anyway, so it was terrible because we were there feeling like we were all in a washing machine because the ship was moving so much. I had 2 cameras on me. I had binoculars trying to find these people and hoping that they're going to survive. Yeah, so it was quite intense. Unfortunately, they did not survive after 40 hours of storms and tension and thinking about even our lives, how vulnerable we are. Sometimes we think, oh yeah, we're gonna live forever. And then, something happens in life that changes your perspective. I think right now, for instance, it's an opportunity for us to see, in a closer way, not only at sea with my experiences, but also seeing the COVID numbers, which is horrible because they're not numbers, are people, are families. So yeah, every time I think in stressful situations at sea, I remember that I'm there for a cause. I'm there because I believe, I have faith, in a better word, I have faith that the young generation, but all people, everyone, every single person, doesn't matter how old it is, but gets motivated to take action. And it can be in a very simple way, in very simple things, right? When you decide to wake up in the morning and make smart actions and make decisions, smart decisions. So when you decide what you have for breakfast, when you decide how long your shower is going to take, when you decide how you're going to transport yourself to go to the supermarket or to go to work or see your friend. So there are many steps that we can take from now on, because this is our responsibility. There is no excuse anymore. So if you just say, oh yeah, but it's so expensive to buy organic food. Well, find a community and make your own space, your own gardening, your own area with your friends, with your colleagues, with your neighbors. I think we need more initiatives like this. And just an example, I was here in the lockdown, and thinking, how can I contribute? And then it turns that I found out about this amazing gardening community. They have been operating since 1984. And what you do, you go there, volunteer to grow food and deliver that to people. And they've been doing that for the COVID family affected. And so, yes, I think it's a very basic thing, right? We think it's hard. It's put a lot of no in front of us. Like, okay, let's rethink this strategy. Let's rethink different ways, alternative ways that I can rebuild my diet, because this is also part of the responsibility we have to maintain ourselves healthy and good and operating here, but also our commitment with the environment.
Because you're talking about lifestyle, I also want to ask you, how did you grow into being this person and having a certain lifestyle? I mean, where do you take your food from, your clothes? And I suppose you haven't always been like this today. You took some steps, and maybe you can walk us through some of the steps a bit when you started being interested in a sustainable lifestyle, and how we can do to that.
Yes. Well, I guess since I'm passionate about film, I started watching a lot of documentaries on how can you understand nature, for sure. So BBC always inspired me very much with all these beautiful shots. And I was thinking, like, wow, we have all these natural sources, like all these power of creating an atmosphere. It's all free, it's all there. We had this since we were born, so why not to take care of it? What's happening with our minds on when we go crazy to go shopping and not thinking where this thing comes from? So I don't know, I guess these beautiful images on National Geographic and BBC Nature, you know, like this connection with Earth, it started with the image because this is my work. But when I look at my life, coming from a family that has no particular relationship on sustainable life and sustainability in general, I had to rebuild everything from zero, you know, every teenager, right? So you eat crap food, you know, and it's because it's cheaper and because it's easier and it's tasty too, right? Let's be honest, deep fried, whatever it is. But then it's like, okay, how can I make it in a sustainable way, in a simple way, and affordable way? Then I don't know, for me, it really started with the food. Whatever I put on my plate, wow, this is a big impact. This is a major responsibility. I don't want to destroy the Amazon forest putting a meat in my plate. I don't want to have more plastic in the oceans than fish by 2050. So I'm not buying things. I really think about when I get everything, when I purchase anything, if there is plastic or not. I've decided to take a vegetarian, almost vegan diet because I think it's also created an impact. And I think it's more than necessary now to rethink. And you know, if you need to go shopping for clothes, go for secondhand shops. And we don't need anything sharp and new. Things can be reinvented too. This is why it exists, the upcycling. This is why new concepts are coming, and we can just be open for it and then explore it and find beauty in recreating things. Because whatever we put in this planet now, it's going to be trashed somehow, and this is quite scary, right? In 6 months, we're not using these clothes anymore. You're eating without thinking about the future, about the generations who are going to be here facing these problems. But yeah, I guess I could be talking for hours on these topics because they're so important and so necessary. And again, I think we don't have excuses anymore. And as a community, as someone who actually can create and co-create together, we can go even further. I experienced that. I can tell how powerful it is, and it brings results. Believe me, if you don't have a community, if you didn't start it yet, like look it up, because it brings peace in your heart and makes you feel so good, especially in these stressful times. We need to rethink and recreate the future we wanted to have.
I'm so glad we got to this topic so fast. And one of my main concerns today is how do you spread this spark around you? So I'm curious, you coming from a family that didn't have anything to do with recycling, or maybe friends, how do you spread the word to your close ones? What did your close ones say about your lifestyle?
Well, I know people from all different places, origins, all different realities, from the poorest to the richest, Amazon natives. I love how plural our relationship with the world it can be. And I love every single person because we always learn with our differences. We're always learning, even if somebody hurts you. And it's like, okay, I'm learning something from this person, you know, from this thing. It's all about our perspective and how we operated from now. So how I spreaded my message, talks like this, I think are very, very important, because it allows us to don't speak with just our bubble, but also open up for, you know, more people to get access and think together. I'm not the perfect example, but I just as a starter, I invite people to rethink reality. I invited people to use their own art somehow to inspire others, because we do have this potential. Everyone has this potential to create, to put your hands in the soil, to put your energy in how to protect what it belongs to everyone, the rivers and the forest. So I talk a lot with my friends. I use my work as a tool in photography, in film, and in my artistic performances. And more recently, last year, I published my book. It's been launched around a year now. It's called 7 Years and 7 Seas. And then I talk about my experience in sailing all those years working for Sea Shepherd, Greenpeace, but also on my own sailboat, which I bought in Malaysia, refitted for 8 months. It took me a long time. And then I sailed 15 countries to Turkey, little by little, in 4 years. So it's a opportunity, right? When you are a global person, when you think that your voice and your passions and your art has to reach in other places or other realities, I think it gets more easy for me. It's very natural. It's very organic to come. It's like talk about these things, but not like I don't want to impose anything, because we have our own conscience and we have the power to decide what we want to do. So you watching me now, you have the decision to do it. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay and it's like, yeah, such a bad situation and just think about it and then forget it? Or you just wanted to take this opportunity to think together and do something together? So these questions and provocations or uncomfortable things, because it is uncomfortable also for me every time, every day. But this is also something that brings me to other seas. I also launched a movement with 2 colleagues. I'm a co-founder of the Women's League of the Ocean, in Portuguese, Liga das Mulheres pelos Oceanos. And we mainly talk about 3 topics: the ocean exploitation of marine resources, the ocean warming due to climate change, and the plastic pollution, right, of the seas, and lack of sanitation as well. So I try to find different strategies with my colleagues. Myself alone, I'm nothing. I'm just one little grain in the middle of the desert, trying to do something. But again, as I said, I believe in the power of the collective strength. And yes, whoever it's possible, I'll be there. Whatever I can do, I'll be there. And I believe I came here in this planet for a reason. I'm not here just visiting. I'm visiting too, but I'm visiting with a purpose, let's say.
Tell me a bit more about your collective, the Women's Collective. Why is it a Women's Collective, and how can women around the world join and do something with you?
Yeah, the movement started on the 8th of March, 2019. So it's a very symbolic decision, because we wanted to be an International Women's Day. We have around 400 women now in Brazil supporting us. We are starting to grow and find ways to communicate with people. Our communication, the League, has begun, it turned to be suitable for the decade. We wanted to be the protagonist. We think it's about time, right? Historically, for women to have an opportunity and space to talk about the oceans and to talk about the environment. So in our movement, which has been created by me, Paulina, and Leandra, they are in Brazil now. It has the purpose of reaching more people, but also raising voices from women, from scientists, from artists, from photographers, from athletes. And all these people could come together, all these women can come together and show the work and share the message, share the knowledge. So this is what we wanted to give the opportunity for all these women have their own room, their own space, and share their abilities and their passions for the oceans.
Okay, so can you give me an example right now? What are they working on, or what are you guys all together working on? What kind of project?
Yeah, along the 2019 year, we participated and contributed in giving support for different events, such as Ocean Films Festival, And also plastic was a big theme. It is a big theme topic now, right? So we participated, also contributing for a photography event in São Paulo, in Brazil as well. We launched last year our first campaign for a terrible oil spill that happened in the northeast of Brazil. So we were there basically reporting with women who is part of the league, what's happening there in the local fishing communities that has been affected by this disaster. We also have a lot of people writing articles and sharing their work regarding the what's going on in conferences and in their films. So we share that knowledge, we bring discussions, we have a regular talks as well every once in a while, bringing other women to share what's going on in their city or in their actions or even their researches as a scientist. So it's a hub of women from different parts supporting and sharing what they have been studying, what they have been doing for the sea.
Okay, and I know you have a platform for that, so anyone interested can join and contact you, and maybe...
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Everybody's welcome. The website is still in Portuguese.
Oh, okay.
But we really wanted to translate it and make it international. We do have plans for that. It's happening slowly because we're all volunteers, and it's a new way to operate. But we will soon launch it. But in Portuguese, I can send it to you, or we can put it on the comments here later. But it's Liga das Mulheres pelos Oceanos.com.
Maybe a bit we can understand a bit of the language, but I want to go a bit back to the clashes maybe, or the conversations that take place between activists and scientists, that you were saying earlier, that, you know, activists like yourself said we don't need to make more testing on the animals from the sea, and scientists, some of them want to do that. Is there a conversation between the two parts, a dialogue of how we can make things work for both of the parts, also protecting and also, I don't know, moving forward with the science without moving the environment? Or how does it go?
Well, there are a few events happening along the agenda regarding the oceans. For the whales specifically, there is the International Whaling Commission that happens every year, and is supposed to be a space from different nations and scientists to discuss how many whales can be sacrificed for scientific research. But again, there are different perspectives, right? Once you have interests, politics, economy, you know, all these interests involved, it's really hard to actually enforce the law and helps to maintain these lives, basically. But from the UN, there is a start of the decade of the oceans, so there will be an opportunity to discuss and communicate the emergency of the ocean actions. And I think opportunities like that, they're very interesting. And we do believe that we can have an opportunity to discuss, but I don't see anything real in terms of actions. Of course, we have to use the communication as our main tool to inspire people, and then to prove them that it is important to stop some companies. It is important to rethink the way the relationship we have with the ocean, the relationship we have with consumption. But between science and communication, and you know, it's a long road. I believe 100% in science. I think we need it to survive. I embrace all the opportunities to discuss what's happening in terms of climate change, what's happening regarding the overexploitation of marine resources, plastic pollution. It's like the main topic all over the world. There is a reason for it, so we can't really ignore it. So every opportunity that we can raise science and help with this match on how to communicate people and how to see real changes on the governments and, you know, like big companies, it's mandatory, it's necessary. But I personally, I don't see like one, oh yeah, this is the meeting that will, you know, transform now the world. I think it's a gradual change, and people like over the generations, right? When you see the economy, when you see what all the stages that the world has been passing, nothing happens like, yeah, now. It takes time. So even the effects of the COVID, we only really understand maybe in a few years or decades. You're leaving now, but we can't really see the results. So that's why it's so important, I think, to do small steps, but at least we feel that we're moving forward. And as an individual, but as a movement, as a, you know, a company, as like everybody has their own bits on this.
Because you mentioned COVID-19, we saw in this time all these articles showing that nature was flourishing in this time and age. What do you think about that? What happened to nature in this time? Is it a bit better? Did it help? And what's next? Are we going to, do you think we're gonna be more careful with it because we're more aware maybe of it, because we were denied the right for a while to be in contact with nature?
Well, in just a few months, we definitely see some changes, right, happening in the environment. While we humans are not there, nature just bloom, right? Like it's a quite how to say, impressive, because actually the nature doesn't need us. We need nature, right? And I don't know how society is going to behave from now on, because we have these both sides, right? Well, where people will be more sensitive, especially in countries here in Europe, in the UK, but in Europe in general, or countries that has been facing war and experienced war. It's like, wow, we have to help each other. We have to change our habits. We have to do something. But I see maybe in my bubble, right? I see people more sensitive and worried and rushed. Okay, we have to do something. But I also see, like in China, when, you know, first day when the lockdown stopped, like in a very expensive department store, like people, like huge lines of 2-3 hours to shop, purchase I don't know, a bag or clothes. So it's it's really hard to predict. Of course, I wanted to believe that people would be shaken, you know, from this experience, and then it really takes action. It really change habits. It really rethink life in general, and not like we have to stop to think as a person and think more as a humanity.
Okay, you were saying earlier that actions don't happen overnight, but if you would have to choose like one major action that should start tomorrow, what problem we should deal with first from all your experience in the field?
I guess
I know it's tough.
Yes, I guess it's really related to our habits. But we are facing two huge things right now, which is the food industry. And I think this has to be really considered, because this is what you do at least 3 times a day. So we're like for ages, like even before COVID, seeing waste of food, which is unacceptable. Well, people in my country, in Brazil, or people in India or Africa, it's been craving for. Like I see even here, supermarket, like even the plants, these plants doesn't look very well. So we're going to reduce the price because we're going to trash it. Same with food. Oh, this tomato doesn't look really acceptable. What is a beautiful tomato? So we're going to trash it. So what is going on with the world, you know? And I think food is the number one because this is, you know, what we need to survive. But then when it turns to the ocean, because it's my main passion, because I have a movement with my colleagues to talk about the ocean, it's impossible to do not consider the trash that has been raising like more and more with the masks and gloves and things that has been produced. So it's quite scary how plastic consumption has been raising over the last few months because of the virus. So people should really rethink on how we can protect ourselves, because of course it's needed and necessary. But why not use reusable masks? Why not try to avoid plastic as much as you can, as much as you can? It's not only things that you buy and you get it when you go to the supermarket, if you have a choice, right? But also when you travel around, because plastic, it comes from the fossil fuels. And it's not only in your polished nails, if you use it, rethink it, because it's not really good for the environment. But but also when you decided to take airplane, it's also when you decided to take a bus, and it's everywhere, right? But we can change that, and I think it's an option. And we have this decision to take. Do we want to keep living in a chaotic world? Do you want to see it like sinking, the planet sinking? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be really sad. So I wanted to believe that we can do, and we can, It doesn't matter what are the conditions that everybody lives, because if we communicate with other people, we can find solutions. We can rethink together and find a way out. So I don't know. It's hard to say if the world's going to change after the COVID. I hope so. I really hope so.
I was thinking that more and more when you talk to people like yourself that know so much about the environment, or as long as I read about it a lot, it becomes very overwhelming finding out how many problems the earth has. And I was curious, how do you deal if you find it overwhelming at sometimes with all the information, knowing all of this from all the field, and how do you step back and say, okay, let's focus that on the part that we can have also a future if we work on it. But a lot of times it feels overwhelming knowing that, you know, all of this is going on.
I breathe deeply. I do meditation. That helps me a lot because it's a very stressful topic, right? Because it's not only about me, my friends, my colleagues, about the entire world. I have a tattoo of the word wide in my back, and everybody likes, oh my God, I have the word in your back, and literally, right? And it's a very funny, the analogy and the comparison. But yes, I think I try to find practices that helps me to be more concentrated, to do my work the best way as possible. And another thing that helps me a lot in these moments is to do Tai Chi Chuan, because I love martial arts. And yeah, I think we have to find our way to be more connected. And when we do that, things are more fluid, more relaxed. But of course, there are moments that I just wanted to war for the world, you know. It's like, guys, please stop at everything. But then a virus made it. So let's see if people will actually, yes, be aware, open their eyes.
Talking about not so relaxed times, we got in our first questions, and I want to ask you one of them from the chat, because I know you have some stories to tell for this answer. Did you have any legal problems with any government as a result of your activism? For example, being banned from entering a specific country?
Yes, back in 2006, I was working on a campaign, an anti-whaling campaign. And it was one of these events I was telling you about. The International Whaling Commission was happening in the Caribbean at the time. And then I was there with 865 whale tails made in cardboard, painted in black and written RIP. That was the number of 865 whale tails, a symbolic number. This is the number of the whales that was killed the previous year. So it was basically with the boat and anchor, then crossing with my other friends, activists, in a small boat, taking all these symbolic whale tails to represent the deaths, right in front of this very, glamorous hotel where the conference was happening, people flying from all over to be there. And then I was arrested. I stayed in a solitary confinement for 2 days with no food or water. And I was banned for 10 years to go to this island, St. Kitts and Nevis Islands. I've been in jail a few times during my activism. It's not easy. It's not practical to travel. But at the time, I thought it was really necessary, really important for me. Nowadays, I stay behind the lenses, right? I try to share the same anger and passion and worry, like all these things combined together through art. So yeah, different strategy, but still pretty intense when I remember when I was in jail, especially in the solitary confinement, far from my friends and my colleagues, not knowing what would actually happen to me. But then when I was there sitting in this dark place, right, which is solitary confinement, rethinking my whole life, like, what am I going to do? What am I doing here? But then at the same time, I thought it was like, well, this is the only place I could possibly be here and now. So I was, of course, worried, scared, but very proud of, just fighting for something I believe.
Okay, so you never had a moment when you got so scared that you'd say, okay, this is too much. Maybe I have to let go of this lifestyle.
No. No, I don't know. I think it's like what I said, when you believe something very strongly, you find strength from somewhere. I don't know, somewhere there is a space in our brain, I think, that we can find courage. We can find these things to go and move forward. This is no surprise when you think about amazing activists that really changed the world and has been changing the world now. They all have these elements. It's stronger than us. I don't know. It's hard to say, but even if I was scared, I never really thought of stopping. Maybe I changed the strategy, but never stopped.
Okay, and I have to ask, what's the story behind you being a spy? How do you become a spy for a tuna farm? Or I don't know if I got it right, but please tell me more.
Yes, that happened in the Faroe Islands. It's a little group of islands between Scotland and Iceland. And what happens there, it's the killing of whale as a tradition. It's been happening for generations. In the beginning was to maintain the families. It was a survival, hunting for survival. So it's reasonable, but nowadays it's not so interesting, acceptable, because in these places you have ways to maintain yourself. We have our resources, right? So I was invited to do this work for Sea Shepherd, and also it became a TV show called Viking Shorts for Discovery Channel. I had a spy camera on me. I basically had to research and get closer to this community of whalers and do all my best to avoid the killing of the whales. So I informed my colleagues on the ships. I was working from land, traveling from the north to the south of the island. And it was really, really, really intense because there are good people. There are interesting people. There are welcome even people. But perhaps it's, and then I'm not talking about this specific island, but like the whole world has to be open for changes, because it's okay if your whole life you have been like in Brazil. It's a very a culture of meat, right? Barbecue meat. Blah, blah, blah. It's like this is already like in the, you know, you get born and you already get this culture. Like every celebration has to contain a certain kind of meat. But nowadays, do we need it? It is necessary to survive, or it's just like your pleasure, your need, your luxury to eat what you want, not thinking about what are the consequences that will happen from this industry you're going to support. So anyways, it was like a super intense experience. I had wow, one of the most powerful exchanges in my life, understanding human being, understanding a culture completely different than mine, but also inviting them for to rethink their future, to rethink, well, okay, you like to see the ocean, you know, red, full of blood. It gives you pleasure somehow. Why? How does it happen? Why does it come from? Why you feel like this if there is a life dying and you don't even eat it because it has, so it contains a lot of heavy metals there, mercury, for instance, which is terrible for human body. If a woman is pregnant, it can deform the pregnancy and it can deform the baby. So what is and mentally it could cause you problems, issues in the future if you consume these heavy metals that are in the whales. So, and plus they're beautiful, magical animals. So like, why are you still eating it? But of course, you know, I was doing undercover work and it was tricky because I couldn't put all my passion like this. I'm telling you now because this is me. But it was a very, very good experience to also understand like why this is important for them, and also encourage education, information exchange in order to rethink their traditions, which is not necessary anymore. So it works for a few people in these dialogues and exchanges. It was a big adventure for me because wow, you know, I was there with my backpack traveling and, you know, pretended to be just a traveler and everything, but also trying to save lives. So I'll never forget this experience. I met amazing people. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to work in a different way and erase this voice. And hopefully these people are changing. And I think so. I think when the TV show was out, the Viking Shore was out on Discovery Channel, I think a lot of people was like, wow, you know, yeah, especially for the young ones. I felt it was more difficult for the old whalers, you know, to establish a conversation with them. But I believe in change and transformation. So
yeah, that was what I wanted to ask you. How did the story end? I mean, did you have conversation with the whalers afterwards, and did it change anything in some of them maybe in their way of thinking, or were they just angry seeing the result?
They didn't know, right? They were angry. They didn't know I was a spy, of course. They only knew after the show when it was screened on TV. And during the time I was there, it was a mixed feelings because some of them, they saw the Sea Shepherd vessels. So they were like, you know, what is going on here? What are they going to do? How is this girl? So most of them asked me, oh, are you related to these guys from whatever environmental, I don't know. And then I had to say, no, what is this about? Can you tell me more? So it's like a kind of a tricky position, let's say, but it helped me to accomplish my mission there. and protect these whales, protect the oceans, protect these lives. We have no need to kill them. And it's sad that we still have to talk about these things, but if being a spy, it's necessary, it's mandatory to see this change, I'll be there. But now being on TV, it's more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's on my book, so hopefully it's gonna get it translated, and you can read it. You guys can read it.
There's another question for you that was also on my list somehow. It says, Luisa says, I'm really curious, what's a fear that you had to overcome in this journey on sea, and how, if it did change your way of thinking, living?
How is it the change? Sorry?
A fear that you have to overcome in your journey, and how did it change your way of thinking and living? I was thinking also, I want to expand a bit more maybe on this question, because you started at a very early age traveling, and you were a teenager. So you spend most of your time growing into an adult, living through these changes. And yeah, maybe you can talk a bit about your fears at those age that changed, or how did you changed in time?
Yeah. I think fear is part of humans, right? Like we're always fearing something. If we're going to be successful in this job, if the relationship's gonna work, if so many things. If I'm looking okay, fear is the huge problem in society nowadays. Like we fear going out because there is a fires there. We fear, like the big thing right now, it's fear. And what I say, it's like there will be always fear, but once we look it up to our vulnerability, to this big F fear, we have the opportunity to grow. We have the opportunity to see, it's like, okay, what can I do to face it and change it? What can I do to don't be stuck, right? Don't feel that you're not moving forward because of this fear. And of course, I had several moments of tension, worries, and fear. Yeah, I'm right there out at sea, sailing with big waves. I remember one time I was sailing and it was like big waves of 20 meters inside. I couldn't see the horizon. It was super intense. It's like, wow. But instead of being frightened, I was like, how beautiful is nature, like how small I am compared to this magnificency, like it's so amazing. These waves, my God. So beautiful. It's basically transform the feelings. It's like it's okay to have fear. It's okay to look at the fear, like, okay, hi fear, recognize the fear, and then decide what is going to do with this. What are you going to do with your fear, with your emotions, with your weak moments, because it's part of humanity. But yes, I deal with compassion, patience, sometimes emotional, but here I am, surviving and going forward, moving forward like everybody else.
Let's talk a bit about your book, because even though we can't read it now until it gets translated, maybe you can walk us a bit through what was your intent with it, what does it follow, and what do you want to move in readers, and then about the fact that you're transforming it also in other type of performances, and what do you expect to gain from all of it?
I always have a little notebook with me. I love it. It's like my therapy. So when I have a notebook with me, I feel safe. It's been like this since I was 10, and I never really stopped it. It's like addicting having a little book there, and then always like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this. So during my journey at sea, I collected more than 50 notebooks. All these feelings, emotions, and tensions, and moments of victory, and yeah, we made it. So all these things are there. They are in Brazil. with a couple friends of mine. It's like, this is my goal, this thing in the world. But since I travel a lot, it's very hard to take the things with me, even my journals. Yes, I decided to write this book and put everything there because I believe if I have a story and if I have such a strong story, because it's not only about the environment, it's about my decision to fight for the environment. It's my decision to go there, and it's a memoir, right? So I decided to take all these notebooks and I did everything by hand. So it's like with everything, the computer, make it like a, like I had to make a decision on which stories I would pick and share. It was quite difficult, took me a while. There were moments it's like, oh, but this is so intimate, it's about my fears. And in the book, it's about my decision to embrace life in total way, like in the most intense way, the most beautiful way, with everything that comes with. And it's not only my journey with Greenpeace, my journey with Sea Shepherd, my journey in my own sailboat, crossing the world in several countries. It's about a life decision. It's about a passion. It's about what makes me move around and giving up friends, giving up family, giving up my pleasures, my luxuries, and then be where I have to be to this message be delivered and these actions being taken. So the book I wrote, it's about a life journey. It's about what can I do now to see a change in the middle of all this hurricane that happens, because this is life, right? We fall in love and we get disappointed. We get an amazing job and then like someone, it's not so cool. It's life, but it's everything. It depends on the perspective you see things. And this is what I try to deliver with my message in my book. And this is what I'll keep doing, right? I love the idea of exchange. I love the power of collective voices. I love the potential that we have from the literature, from the arts. So this book, I hope it's going to reach more people. I'm looking for publishing houses to help me with this process. And yeah, I'm here to answer all the questions. I also have my website, barbaraveiga.com, my Instagram, Barbara Veiga, Barbara normal, Veiga, Veiga. Barbara Veiga official on my Instagram. And yes, I try to answer all the questions, all the messages. It might take a little while, but I do. And yes, let's keep doing it together, from arts, from literature, from the decisions we take every day.
It's good that you said your contacts, because we're getting to the end of the conversation, but I'm sure we're going to post them online for people to reach you if they want. I only have one last question, because you were talking about the loss of friends earlier. What do you lose? What else do you lose in this kind of journey, and what do you win? What are the losses and the wins of this lifetime journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, time is precious, right? It's like every decision we take it can define what's going to happen next in your life. So I really nowadays, when I think about what happened in the past, and like, how am I going to use my time in the best way as possible, from the people I connect, from the work I do. So this is the big lesson I have from what worked or not worked, and all these things. Of course, when you are traveling around, yes, you lose the opportunity to share moments with the people you love, right? But also, I know that they know that I feel so happy when I'm dedicating my time, my energy, my work to something that I believe. And this is what I wanted to put on my films. This is what I wanted to show in my photography. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to have everything in life, right? So if I know that if they know that I'm happy and I can feel this happiness, it's okay. And I know that, you know, the world is not so big. I can meet them. I can compensate it the how I miss them. I write letters to my friends and the people I love when I'm sailing, like real letters. And postcards. I think it's a great way to connect. When I was in Japan last year with my artistic performances called Sea Women, I wrote postcards to every person that I thought was important to me, because it was so special to be in a country that it's so interesting with a lot of traditions and beauty, and it's like all the details are well thinking, and I love it. I love Japan, but also on the other hand, like the interest and the care for the oceans is not so it's not acceptable, right? So like these two parts, I was like struggling myself, but it was amazing to talk about the oceans with my body expression, my music, my things, and there in this moment, and then having people listen to it and understanding to it. So this is the good part, when even if I am in a conflict, not necessarily between the harpoon and the whale, but also inviting people to rethink their lives with using art. It's a very special thing. So it compensates. But yeah, of course, I miss having one nice comfortable bed to sleep at night. But in the other hand, I have the opportunity to connect with so many people from different places, from different countries, and I'm passionate about this, Hyman's ability to use multiple languages and cultures. But at the end, I feel that everything that you feel and somebody else feel, in different levels, of course, in different ways, but we're human and we are connected, right?
I can feel all your passion until Bucharest, Barbara, and I want to thank you very much for this conversation. It was a great pleasure to be in this talk with you, and I'm sure also the people that were watching us enjoyed it as well. And I just want to wish you what you wish me in every email: fair winds in all your projects, and hopefully you can go back to travel physically soon at some point. And until then, I hope you and all the others that are watching enjoy the rest of the festival. You can surf through the program online. And thanks very much. I can't wait for the translation of the book.
Yes. Well, thank you, Wanka, for this awesome conversation. Thanks everyone who's watching the festival. Very happy to be here. It's always a pleasure not only to share my stories, but also be with you, feel you, because we need that, right? We need that to keep the hope and to keep fighting for what we believe, to protect the seas, to protect the environment. And I'll be here. You can always count on me. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful festival, everyone.
Thank you.
Ciao. Fair winds, everyone.
Hello.